I'm Teresa with Bluegrass Council of the Blind, and I am the executive director. Thank you again for allowing me to share some information with you all about people like myself that have low vision or maybe totally blind. Vision impairment can definitely be obvious to some people because someone might be walking with a sighted guide and they have a white cane in their hand or a guide dog, and that's kind of a pretty clear sign that they have some type of vision impairment. But there could be people walking around that just look perfectly normal. They're managing to navigate on their own and do things on their own. You might not realize that they actually have a vision impairment and that some tasks might be quite difficult for them. So in a situation when you're not really sure, it's always good to ask. Don't assume that everyone that you see walking around without a cane and a dog or a guide, it's not good to assume that they can see things like everyone else. On that same note, different people have different ability levels. People with vision impairments may have a slight vision impairment, significant vision impairment. They might have central vision loss, which is what I have. They may have just peripheral vision loss and have their central vision. Different diagnosis like glaucoma, that can be missing information in their visual fields in different places. So it's really hard to know exactly if a person is visually impaired, what they can see and what they can't see. It's a spectrum. There's a lot of questions to it, and not everyone sees things the same way. So assisting people is kind of the same. What works for one person might not work for another person. So that's where communication is key. The real key to helping someone with a vision impairment is to just ask them, what do they need help with? With any type of disability, the communication is key to figuring out how it's best to help or assist that person, or maybe they don't even need assistance, but you wouldn't know unless you ask. First, we're going to ask an individual if they need help. A lot of times it's really kind of crazy how often myself and other people that I have discussions with that have vision impairments, people assume you need help when you really don't. They want to help you, and it's a really good thing, and we appreciate that. But there's been so many times that people were, I stop and I look around because of my vision impairment. I have to scan to see everything. My vision field, the center is gone, so I have peripheral. So I'm stopping and I'm scanning, looking side to side to take in everything that I can with my peripheral. And often it looks like I'm confused or I don't know where I'm going, and people will just kind of grab my arm and say, come on here, I'll help you, and just start pulling me. And it's like, you don't even know what I'm doing. You don't know where I'm going. How can you just grab me and start pulling? So that's definitely a big no-no. You start with just asking, can I help you? There's some key points to that, and one of them is to speak directly to the person, not to someone that they're with. And if you can, call them by name. So if you have that information and you know that person's name, say, hi, Judy, can I help you get somewhere, or do you need help with that? Using their name will help because they can't always make eye contact. My vision's to the point where I can't see if somebody's looking at me or looking at someone next to me. If I'm in a crowded situation or even a small crowd, when somebody says, do you need some help? I'm not really sure if they're talking to me or the person next to me or across the table. So if you can call them by name, that really helps. If you don't know their name, try to maybe even use some language that specifies. And I can tell you, in our office at Bluegrass Council of the Blind, Paula Weiss has been working with us for many years. She is a master at it. She will just look at someone and she would say, oh, that's a beautiful red dress. Can I help you find something? And that way I know, oh, I have on a red dress. She's probably talking to me. So if she doesn't know my name, she uses some type of just general conversation to identify or let me know she's talking to me. It's also okay to just, like, if you're standing next to someone or behind someone and you're asking them if they need something, to place your hand on their elbow or their shoulder. And that would let them know then when you say, would you like some help, or can I help you with that, then they know that you're talking with them. You also need to introduce yourself clearly, state your name so they know who's talking to them. Even if it's somebody that might know you, like Christy Standby, I see, is on the call, and I know Christy, but when we're in a group setting and she comes up to me and there's other people around, or maybe we're in Walmart and I don't expect to see her, you know, if she walks into my office, then I know that it's Christy talking to me. But in an unfamiliar situation, like if we were in an emergency and I was at a shelter or someplace I wasn't expecting to see her, it's great for her to just walk up and say, "Hi, Teresa, it's Christy. How are you today?" You know, and begin that conversation, letting me know who it is that I'm talking to or who's talking to me. In that same sense, if you're with someone that has a vision impairment and maybe you're in a shelter situation or you're assisting them in an emergency, there may be other people around that they know, but they don't necessarily know that they're in that immediate area, to call the other people by name. And that would be, so if, you know, someone was standing with me, they might say, "Oh, here comes Bob." And so they let me know that it's Bob that's approaching. So I can then say, "Hi, Bob, how are you?" And so again, identify yourself, identify others that are coming in and maybe going to work with you. Maybe there's, you know, maybe the person might not have a name that you know, but it's someone coming to help them. So you might say, "I see there's an EMT coming up here. Let's see what he might have to say," or a doctor, or just kind of, I just give that person information on the people that are around them and what's going on. Because we can't take in with our vision what's going on around us. We have to listen and use audio cues to kind of figure out what's going on. And in an emergency situation, things get very chaotic and there's often a lot of noise, and it makes it even more difficult. So that's where it's really important to speak directly to the person and make sure that they're able to hear you, because they're not able to follow those physical cues, the body language and things like that other people are picking up on. And again, in an emergency situation, everyone is a little more on edge. They feel more anxious. For people with vision impairments, we like routine. We like everything in its place, because then we can find it. We remember where things are. And when that gets upset or changed due to some type of crisis, it increases the anxiety significantly, which makes us not concentrate quite as much. So you might have to repeat things a few times and help that person with your words, understand what's going on and be able to figure out the environment that they're in. Those casual conversation indicators really do help out a lot. It makes it less stressful if you're able to include what's going on around them or the people that are approaching in general conversation, rather than talking down to that person and saying, "Okay, I'm going to do this, and here's this person." It's kind of hard to explain, but there are times when you are trying to help a person, but the manner in which you're doing it almost feels like you're talking to a child. And that can be quite frustrating for an adult with a vision impairment. Now, if you are talking with a child with a vision impairment, you might need to simplify and explain things a little differently. But please keep in mind that with adults, that just because they've lost their vision doesn't mean that they need to be coddled. People with vision impairments are the same as any other people. You have people that are highly intelligent. You have some that get anxious. You have some that don't quite understand things as much. So it's like any other person. You just try to gauge the situation and from their feedback, figure out what type of information they're looking for. And again, that goes back to the ask. You need to acknowledge the individual. Before you make physical contact with a person, if you're going to assist them, you should definitely ask first. There have been situations where people have tried to assist me and they see that I'm looking for something, and rather than just saying, you know, can I help you with that, they would grab my hand and put it on whatever it was they thought I was looking for. I was looking for my sunglasses on the table, and I was kind of feeling around for it, and someone grabbed my hand and put it on my cell phone, thinking I was looking for my cell phone, but that wasn't what I was looking for. And it shocked me that a hand kind of came out of nowhere and grabbed my hand. And, you know, that personal space thing, it's very rude for someone to do that. They think that they're helping, but again, if you just ask, can I help you find something? Are you looking for something in particular? Then I can say, oh, I was looking for my sunglasses. Then they can offer to hand them to me, or use your words and tell me where it is. Oh, those are just to your left a little bit. And again, avoid using very generic terms like over there, over here. If you're giving someone directions, then you don't want to say, oh, we're going to go up here for a little bit. We're going to go over there and go by the tent pole. Well, over there doesn't really tell them anything. You might use the words of saying, we're going to go straight ahead about 10 feet. There's a tent set up and we're going to go stand near that. And then ask, would you like to follow me? Do you need some assistance? And if they say, yes, I need assistance, there's 3 primary ways of offering assistance when traveling. Well, first, they might prefer to go on their own. If they're able to see, if they use a cane and they navigate, many people want to keep that independence and say, if you just tell me where I'm going, I can find it myself. And you can say, sure, it's straight ahead down the hallway and it's the second door on the right. And a trained cane user using the white cane can travel down that hallway, find the second door, and go where they're going. And that gives them the independence of being able to do it on their own. Sometimes they don't want assistance. If they do want assistance, then they might want to follow you. If they have significant vision left that they can see to follow a person, then they might want to just go ahead and follow you. If they actually need escorting assistance, they would want to take your elbow. And the best way to do that, rather than just grabbing a hold of them, something that's very common is someone will put their hand in the middle of your back or your shoulders and kind of push you towards where they want you to go. That is very, very unhelpful. It makes the person feel like a child, and it also doesn't give them any kind of direction of where you're going. If they can actually hold on to your elbow, then they're going to feel the direction that you're moving. They're going to feel when you step up or step down, or you are avoiding obstacles. They're going to be able to sense that by holding on to your elbow. When asking people if they would like assistance, using good verbal cues is also helpful. If you're offering to have them go, let's say you're in a meeting or you're in a situation and the emergency situation and they're serving food somewhere, you might just say, hey, I'm going to go over to the tent where they're serving food, or I'm going to go to the cafeteria. Would you like to join me? Again, including any type of assistance that you're offering in general conversation makes that person feel much more comfortable, and it makes them feel included. You're including that person rather than making them feel like they're a burden. Because if you say, would you like some help? I can take you over there if you want me to. Then that person feels more like it's a burden. But if you say, hey, I'm going to go over to the tent. Would you like to join me? And then offer to take them with you and give them your elbow, they feel included and they don't feel like you're going out of your way, and they don't feel bad about asking for that help. The same with, finding the restroom. Hey, I'm going to head out. I'm heading to the bathroom. If you need to go, I'd be happy to walk with you, or would you like to walk with me? And that way the person just feels a little more included, and they don't feel that anxiety of being in a very uncertain situation and not knowing where things are. Now, when you are assisting people, especially again in an emergency situation or an unfamiliar situation, it's helpful for many people to have you describe the environment. And again, this is another situation where you might ask, would you like for me to tell you what's going on around us? Because in an emergency situation, things are constantly moving, and that person might not understand if there's emergency vehicles there, or if certain things are going on. In some situations, they're going to want you to tell them as much as you can so they can get a mental picture and understand what's going on around them. And in some situations, they might not want you to. Some people may be, rather than having overload of explanation, they might just want general conversation. Just talk to them like they're a regular person and say, wow, this is really a difficult situation, isn't it? And let them just kind of talk and express their feelings and their anxieties, or what they're trying to do to get their anxiety under control. So you don't want to overstimulate someone with too much information, but yet the majority of people with vision impairments do really appreciate you describing the situation as you're helping someone maybe from one building to another building or to a vehicle, to explain, we're outside, we're behind the building in the left corner by the street sign, and there's a vehicle up here, and we're going to get you into that vehicle and take you to another location. So we're going to walk straight ahead down the sidewalk, and we're going to have to turn left up here and go about another 15 feet, and we'll be where the emergency vehicles are. So if you can give them an idea of where they're going, how far they're going to have to go, that just gives them an idea of what's going on around them. If you're helping someone, let's say they're going to be staying in a shelter environment, then they're going to need some orientation and mobility instruction, which they're going to need someone to help them figure out where their bed is, or their quarters that they're staying in, where their restrooms are, where they're expected to be able to go to. Many people can do this on their own once they have that orientation and mobility instruction. Once someone's able to help them figure out what the landmarks are, and help them figure out, okay, if I go out of this room and I trail along the wall and I pass 3 doors, then there's an open hallway and I need to turn left, and the restrooms will be the first door on the left. And then once you walk with them and you help them figure out, okay, we go down the hall, we take the first left, and it's the first door on the left. From that point on, many people are able to navigate on their own. They just need that little extra help of getting their orientation set of where they are and where the different places are that they need to go. Now, some people will choose to follow if they are using a guide dog. Now, a team of an individual and their dog, we refer to as a team, and the dog is working with that individual, and they will ask the dog to follow you. So in that situation, some people using a guide dog will want to just have you walk ahead of them, and they will give commands to their dog to follow. If you are using that form of assistance, it is helpful to, number one, do not talk to the dog and don't touch the dog. Don't grab the leash or the harness of the dog. You simply want to get in front of the dog and make a motion to get the dog's attention, maybe wave wave to the dog or snap your fingers, and then that individual will say, "Follow Bob," and then the dog will follow you. And if you're going to make any directional changes, if you're going to be going upstairs or downstairs, let the individual know that we're going to be approaching stairs. When you approach stairs, it's very important to let that individual know if you're going to be going upstairs or downstairs. It's very important if they know they're going to either need to be going up or be cautious that there is a flight of stairs going down, and they need to be sure and get the railing and get their bearings before they start those steps down. The same with a curb. If you're going to be stepping up on a curb or stepping down off of a curb, let people know that. And the dog, again, will follow, but if you would give that individual some verbal cues, we're going to be turning left, the individual will then tell their dog that they'll be turning left. She'll give the command to the dog to follow you to the left. The stairs, when you do approach stairs, what you're going to need to do is assist that person. If they're using a dog, you're going to say, okay, we're approaching the steps, and the dog will get to the steps and the dog will stop, and you would just kind of let that individual get their bearings. You might want to give them directions. The rail is on your left or the rail is on your right. And the dog will actually show the person to the rail as they give the command. And then again, proceed in front of them. And it also is helpful to let them know if there is a landing, if there's 2 landings and you're going to be, continuing to the left and up more set of steps, or when we get to the top of the steps, there'll be a door straight ahead. Again, those verbal cues throughout any type of navigation is extremely helpful, and avoid, again, here and there and very general words that really don't tell us very much. Some people prefer to take the elbow, and that is the most common way of assisting a person. And the video is going to show us exactly the way to offer help. When you make contact with an individual, the best way is to take the back of your hand and place it on the back of their hand. And at that point, they can follow up your arm to your elbow. And that way, there's no awkward grabbing and not knowing where that individual's arm is. If you place the back of your hand on their hand, they can just very easily follow up to the elbow and avoid any embarrassing moments. They're going to hold just above your elbow. In most situations, they're going to have their hand shaped like a C and just take the outside of your arm, well, actually kind of from behind or the inside of your arm with their hand, and that gives them stability. And you're going to want to keep your arm kind of tight to your side and down, and you're going to walk about a half a step or a step ahead of that individual. So as you're holding on, or as they're holding on to you, you're just slightly ahead of them, and that allows them to know if you're going straight, if you're starting to turn or veer. If you've got your arm close to you, they know to stay close, and as you veer left, they're going to veer left, or if you stop, they're going to stop. If you're going to be traveling through a door, you might need to switch sides. It is much easier for someone to go through the door with the door on their open hand side. So if I'm holding on to someone with my right arm and we're going to go through a door and the door opens on the right side, we would want to switch and have you on my left side. That way you go through the door first. As I follow, my right hand is open, so I can hold that door open as I go through and then close the door behind me. There's been many times that my husband does not yet understand this door reminding me which side it's on. And he leads me through a door, and I'm kind of going like this because I think the door is here to hold the door open, and there's no door. It's on this side, and it comes and hits me. So when you're not really sure, it's best to let that person know where that door is. So then again, it's inclusion, it's helping them not only understand, you know, my husband's constantly, he just wants to hold the door for me. He doesn't want me to touch it, you know, so he doesn't tell me, but I feel this need, you know, when you go through a door, you want to hold it open and make sure you get through it. It's very helpful to use those words. Let's see. So, on my presentation, the main points were acknowledge the individual, call them by name, let them know who you are, and what the situation is. So we're going to acknowledge, we're going to ask if they need assistance, ask what information they want you to tell them, if they want you to describe the situation, describe the environment, just use your words and ask, would you like to follow? Would you like help with that? If someone looks like they're struggling, something that I do, I walk into a restroom and I have my cane with me. I use a white cane. I get into the restroom and I'm scanning to look to see where the sink is and where the stalls are and where there's an open door. I use my cane because it's an indicator to other people that I have a vision impairment. And 9 times out of 10, if there's an individual in the bathroom and I walk in and I stop and I look around with my cane in my hand, they will ask, do you need some help? Or they might say, there's an open stall here, and they will open the door and, you know, say, you know, here to the right. And it's very helpful to me for someone to offer that type of help because I am scanning, trying to get my bearings. And sometimes I might be able to do it on my own, but some people might not. So, you know, offering that assistance and just using your words to ask if they need help and what type of help they need. They might just be looking for the sink, you know, and want to wash their hands. So whether you're walking with a person with a dog or with a person with a cane or a person that might not have either and need assistance, then you also want to alert them of any obstacles. And don't forget obstacles that might be hanging from above. If there's a low-hanging branch or tape or rope, in certain situations, things are roped off or taped off and they may be an obstacle from above and not below. Alert that person that there's a tree branch up ahead. We're not able to go around it, so we're gonna have to duck down, and then let them know once they've cleared it. You know, as you get up to it, okay, now duck, and then okay, you're clear and you can stand up again. Just make sure that you remembered that they don't see above or below or to the sides. If something's quickly approaching from one side or the other, alert them. Be clear with your verbal cues. One of the things that we as vision impaired people do not like is when someone says, hey, watch out. I have no idea what that means. What am I watching out for? Am I watching out above? Is there something coming at me? Is it something from my left or my right? Am I about to step off a step? The best thing to do is to say stop. If they're approaching a dangerous something or about to run into something or something's coming towards them and you want them to stop from stepping out in front of a person riding a bike, the best thing to do is just say stop. Or if they need to step to the side quickly, just let them know, hey, step to the right, step to the left, or alert the person coming at them maybe that you're with someone that can't see. So you might use some visual cues to the other person, maybe put your hand up or maybe motion them to go around you, because they don't necessarily realize that you're assisting a person with a vision impairment and you can't get out of the way quick enough. So if you might alert the other person to go on around or to stop and then let you and the person you're assisting go. But please try not to use the words watch out or look out, or there's a car, there's a bike. Well, that's good for me to know, but if I don't know which direction it's coming from, then it makes it difficult for me to know what I need to do to get into a safe spot. Different people use different techniques. Most of this that I'm telling you right now are for people that have a vision impairment and have had some type of orientation, may have had their vision impairment for a while. Myself, I've been visually impaired since I was 12, and I'm gradually losing sight. So my vision now is much, much different and much worse than it was when I was 20 or 30 or even 40 years old. So I'm having to learn and adjust as I go, and other people are as well. Some people may have a stable vision impairment. It's not changing. They're comfortable with navigation. But you might have somebody that's maybe an older adult that's losing their vision later in life. They might be 80 years old and they've always used their vision. They've always navigated with their eyes and seeing, and now they are experiencing a vision impairment, and many of them, they don't seek help. They don't try to do things on their own, and they don't get out of the house because they're not familiar with the environment. They don't feel comfortable doing that. So when that type of person is in an emergency situation, they're going to need a lot more assistance than a person that's been visually impaired all of their life. So you might not have that ability to know if they're newly visually impaired, but you can kind of gauge on, their conversation and what they're telling you. With a person that may be newer to vision loss and not have learned those skills of using their hearing and listening and verbal cues, you might have to adjust your language a little bit. You might have to repeat yourself. So just really kind of gauge that situation and adjust accordingly, because some people, again, everybody's abilities are at different levels. Different skills that they've learned to use are at different levels. So with an elderly person, when they take your arm and you're guiding them, it's perfectly normal if they have some stability issues or maybe even some insecurity issues, that they will loop their arm through your arm, so your arm in arm. If they have some stability issues with walking or balance, that's going to give them a lot more security, and that gives them the control. If they loop their arm through yours, then it's not, if they start to fall, they're grabbing onto you and it's not going to injure them. If you do it the opposite, and let's say I'm with someone and I'm escorting her and I grab a hold of her arm, or I'm leading her and she starts to fall, I'm grabbing her as she goes down. That's going to injure her arm, her elbow, her wrist. It could significantly injure that individual. So it's best, and they may not know this. If they're not used to having a sighted guide, they're not used to getting out and doing things, they may be used to someone always grabbing a hold of them and pulling them and guiding them, because that's just what they've always known, because they didn't know any better. So it could definitely in some situations be up to you to inform that person, here is my elbow, if you would link your arm into mine. If you need to, just grab hold. If you feel unstable, use my arm to stabilize yourself, because they may not know that that's the best way for them to be safe. The other things that I had were for the tools that we use. We talked about the white cane, and not everyone uses a cane. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is many people assume that if you have a cane or a dog, that individual is totally blind. And I was legally blind. It wasn't until I was 30 years old that I met a person that had a guide dog, and I just assumed that he was totally blind because he had a guide dog. I'm legally blind. I don't use a dog, and I didn't think anybody else did. I was totally wrong. He had quite a bit of usable vision, but it was easier for him to navigate in unfamiliar areas with the dog. So don't ever assume that they don't have any vision at all. if they have a cane or a dog. Some people use it in some situations. There's many tools that we use in an emergency situation. Sometimes people might have their smartphone or tablet. There's tons and tons of apps that people can use for navigation. They will tell you turn-by-turn directions. They will, there's apps that will read. If you just hold your camera of your phone in front of something, it will read the text to you. So many people can use that if they're in a shelter or an unusual situation and they need to read signs, that will read it aloud to them. So just remember in some situations that these different tools are extremely important to individuals. So if someone depends on their iPhone to read and to communicate and to navigate in a setting, you know, they might need to charge their cell phone. And in a shelter situation, that might seem like a luxury to a lot of people, but to someone with a vision impairment that depends on that device for their navigation, their communication, for reading, it's much more important for that individual to have that device. So you might want to kind of give them a little leeway in that situation. The video, we'll go ahead and do the video. She gives some really good visual and audio cues on how to help people with being seated and going through doors and things like that. But that's all that I had in my presentation. So if you want to go ahead and run that video.
My name is Larissa Desires. I'm a certified orientation and mobility specialist, which we shorten to O&M. I teach people who are blind or visually impaired how to travel safely and confidently indoors and outdoors, and I give people an opportunity to practice their new skills. The first thing I want people to know is a technique for walking with another person called sighted guide or human guide. For this video, I will call it the more traditional term sighted guide, although a person who is visually impaired can be an excellent guide if they are skilled travelers themselves. For this video, you are the guide, and your companion is the person who is blind or visually impaired and requesting assistance. Sighted guide technique allows both people on the sighted guide team to feel comfortable, safe, and actively walking together. So, how does it work? First, don't assume someone who is blind or visually impaired needs a guide. Ask, would you like me to guide you? If the answer is yes, touch the back of your companion's hand with the back of your hand and let them follow your arm up to the elbow. They should hold on to the back of your elbow with their hand in the shape of the letter C, like they would if holding a cup. If your companion needs more support, then it's okay for them to link arms with you. You and your companion should walk almost beside each other, while you stay a half a step to a step ahead. Most of the time, you will maintain this position. You should keep your arms steady and locked comfortably by your side. Your companion should stay close to you. The sighted guide team should walk at a pace that is comfortable for both people. While walking, go ahead and have a conversation, using special verbal cues for guidance only when needed. If your companion is very new to vision loss, appears anxious, is using a modified grasp, or expresses curiosity about the surroundings, give them more detail about the environment and provide extra verbal cues to help anticipate obstacles. An experienced team will not need much verbal cueing and will rely more on physical cues. When you approach a narrow path, or need to walk through a crowd, or go through a door, bring your arm behind your back to cue your companion to line up single file. It's okay for your companion to let their hand slide down from the elbow to the wrist to allow more room for walking. At the end of the narrow space, bring your arm back to your side to resume walking in a basic sighted guide position. When you approach a seat from the front, approach the front edge of the seat squarely. Bring your companion's legs up to the seat of the chair until their legs touch it. Most people should be able to seat themselves at this point. In special situations, when extra assistance is needed, watch to make sure the seat is clear and say something only if your companion's safety is clearly at risk. When approaching a seat at a table, approach the chair squarely from behind. Place your hand on the back of the chair and allow your companion to follow your arm down to the back of the seat. Again, most people should be able to seat themselves at this point. Remember, only if special assistance is clearly needed, give simple verbal information. When you approach a curb, stop at the top or bottom as square to the curb as possible. Allow your companion to catch up to you. Take a clear, deliberate step and, this is important, keep your guiding arm locked by your side. This gives clear information to your companion about the height of the step. Stop for a moment to allow your companion to catch up with you, then keep walking in the usual sighted guide position. Stairs are similar to a curb. Stop at the top or bottom squarely. Allow your companion to catch up with you. Make sure your companion can grab the railing if one is available. As you go up or down the stairs, stay one step ahead of your companion. Again, except in special circumstances, keep your arm locked by your side. Stop at the end of the stairs and allow your companion to catch up. Then keep walking as usual. Describe the steps if they are unusual. It's okay to mention if there are a few or many steps. Do not count the number of steps, as this is distracting and not the safest practice. About face is a great technique for tight spaces like narrow hallways or elevators. You and your companion simply face each other and initiate a sighted guide grip with the opposite hands, while turning yourself 180 degrees in that small space. You initiate the grip with the touch on the back of the hand, just as before. For doorways, just as with all other sighted guide skills, the guide always goes first. You will open the door, bring your arm behind your back in a narrow passageway position, and walk through the door with your companion, who should be ready to take the door and close it behind the team. You can give verbal cues, such as, the door opens toward us. The door is on our left side. It's easier and safer to keep a car door closed when you approach it with your companion. Place your hand on the handle and allow them to follow your arm to the handle. At that point, your companion can open the door to the car and get in on their own. In special circumstances, more verbal assistance may be needed. Please do make sure the seat is clear. So today we showed you how to use sighted guide technique with your friend, family member, colleague, patient, student, stranger, anyone you know who is blind or visually impaired and would like to walk with you. Sighted guide technique can be used anywhere you want to go. Here are the most important things to remember. The person you are guiding should hold on to the back of the elbow like they are holding a cup. You, the guide, always go first, through doorways, up and down stairs, etc. Never grab, push, pull, or otherwise physically manipulate the person you are guiding.
Thank you for taking the time to learn sighted guide or human guide techniques today. Please share this information widely.
And please refer anyone you know who has experienced vision loss to a local agency that has a certified orientation and mobility specialist on staff.